This is what happens when I think that coming out here to be in the sun would be a great place to record a video. Yet the sun hasn't quite set enough yet, so it looks like I'm in the witness protection program. I, I guess I'm gonna have to wait a little bit longer if I want to sit out here and do this. So I just thought it'd be funny to record this little clip for you of how I thought this would work, but how I also managed to get the sun out of my eyes by using the phone to completely block it. So I think that I should at least get some points for being a little bit brilliant here. All right, take two, I came inside. So for today's video, I just wanted to kind of tell you about how I ended up in a tiny house and just like that, like why a tiny house, why not an apartment? So I've been fascinated with tiny houses for many years, and I wasn't someone who like watched HGTV or anything. A lot of people have told me like, oh, I watched that show, but I just loved the idea of kind of living with less. And as much as I tried to be a minimalist in my big house life, it just felt like unattainable. It was like I had this space and I had to fill it, or I had to like just keep up with consuming the way that other people did. And so it felt like living in a small space would force me to not have stuff, and that it would be nice to like be stripped of that, almost like when you go backpacking and it's like you can only bring what you can carry. So like if you live in a tiny home, you only have what fits in the tiny home. And I guess my willpower to be a minimalist wasn't enough to make it happen in a big space. And I can definitely be a consumer, I can spend money, I'm realizing now, for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with consumerism, right? Just like emotions or safety or like sadness, like all of these things can trigger spending in me. And I don't have a great relationship with money, which could be a topic for future videos. But so I really have always been interested in a tiny house and interested in sort of that, like exploring that life of like what would it be like to just have less and not be so caught up with things. In 2020, I didn't buy any clothes for the entire year. And to be fair, I made that vow in 2019, at the end of 2019, that I wouldn't buy any clothes in 2020. I didn't know that there was going to be a global pandemic and that it was going to make not buying clothes actually really easy, because there wasn't anywhere to go. There was a lot less pressure around it. I wasn't around people as much. So I did it, but to be fair, it just wasn't really that hard. In 2021, I tried to buy only secondhand clothes. I did okay with that. I don't think I bought much that year. And then last year I branched into buying secondhand and buying from sustainable brands. But to be fair, I did buy a few things last year that were from non-sustainable brands and just normal kind of fast fashion-y stuff, although not very many. I was pretty good about it. But I guess my point is it's like really easy to just get sucked back into like mainstream society and what's happening. I definitely strive to, from here on out, buy only secondhand or sustainable brands. And I've been good about that most of this year, I would say, with maybe like one or two exceptions. Like this sweatshirt I have on is actually an exception. I bought this on the internet, on Instagram, but it was for mental health. So it's for a good cause, and I think that probably pushed me toward buying it, but it's definitely like a normal sweatshirt made in like Thailand or something. So anyways, all of this to say that it's just always been an intriguing goal of mine to live a little bit simpler. I've always just wanted to try it, and so when it came up that I was going to need to move somewhere, I thought, well, if I have to move somewhere, like maybe this is my chance to try it and live in a tiny house. But I didn't want to buy one right away. Number one, because I'm just not in a position to buy anything right now. And number two, because I wasn't sure I was going to like it or that I was going to be able to do it. Like, what if I really, really do suck at having less things, like it's definitely a possibility. The crazy thing is it's very challenging to find a tiny house for rent, and like really like crazy challenging. There's a lot of Airbnbs, there's a lot of short-term rentals of tiny homes, but finding a long-term rental of a tiny home seemed like a pretty much impossible task. so that's how I ended up here in Texas. Is it was the literally only long-term rental with tiny house I could find pretty much in the country. So when I found it, I just like jumped on it. I was like, okay, like the universe is pushing me to Texas, and I don't know what this all means, but this is where I'm supposed to go. So that's how I ended up in a tiny house in Texas. I'm leaving out a lot of details of my personal life that I just don't really feel like sharing right now, but I will share in the future. Some of you already know them, some of you don't, but it's just, yeah, kind of like the why I left my house reason. But for now, I did, and I had to, and yeah, I was gonna have to go somewhere, right? And so why not try like making the best of it and just trying to see how tiny home living would be. So far so good. I actually really love it so far, but it's only been a month, so I don't feel like that's a fair assessment of whether I'm capable of doing it. At this point, it seems simple. It's like, you know, I already see how having less makes me more present. It's easy to clean. There's like all these benefits that I'll definitely talk about on this channel and through my videos. But I just wanted to kind of give a like, how did you end up in Texas? A lot of people have asked me that. Why Texas? I didn't choose Texas. Texas chose me. And, you know, sometimes the universe knows better than we know, and you just have to go with the flow. So I actually had a lot of, I had like a bad attitude about Texas before I moved here. Not about Texas as a whole. I had a bad attitude about when people would say, why Texas? I would almost be like, yeah, like, why Texas? Like, it was like, I was doing it, but I was still resisting it. And I think it was a lot of like knowing that my real dream is to move to the mountains and not be hot and like this sort of stuff. But I actually really like have found it quite pleasant to live here so far. I mean, I moved at a good time. The heat has calmed down. It's really, I live in a really rural part of Texas. I'll share with you more about the town I live in. But it's super rural, so it's very peaceful. Everyone's really friendly. It just feels like this, like, I am gonna cry. But it just feels sort of like coming home in a way to myself, to like this slowing down. And I think it's exactly what I needed. So I didn't want to cry in this video, but yeah, it's been really peaceful. Really a lot of sadness, a lot of things like that, but a lot of peace to live in a really small community in a small place. And I'll share all of these things in more depth later, but this is my video for today. Day 2 of the challenge. Yeah, so lots more to come. Thank you for being here.